Hey, good morning, everybody. Robert Phoenix here, and I have a bit of an issue which I need to address. Hold on one second. Hold on. Mars retrograde. Gotta love it. Ah, that's much better. Sorry about that. We have an African dust storm down here in South Central Texas, and every day now I've got to wipe my computer down so I can be clear, at least with my visage. Hey, we're doing a simulcast today. And I'm actually broadcasting to you both live on Spreaker and on YouTube. It's a new thing that I'm trying out. And when I get back up and running full time in August, this is kind of what it's going to look like. So the idea here will be to broadcast across multiple platforms. I'm a little late to the party because there are a lot of other people that are doing it right now. My inspiration is Nathan Stoltman over on Unveil the Truth, and Nathan's great. I've been really enjoying his shows. I think he does a really credible job. Just like everybody else, I don't agree with him 100%, and that's okay. We don't always have to agree with one another 100%. It's going to be rare if we do, and if that's the case, then you should probably marry that person, right? So I decided last night I was on Facebook and I could feel that I was starting to get a bit heated. And one of the things that happened is I put a post on Facebook last night, and it had to do with a series of photos with Obama and Medvedev. And the reason I put them up was because clearly there was a relationship with Russia, and that was hand in glove with Obama and Medvedev. There's even a clip where he says to him, it's a hot mic, and Obama says, "Hey, I just have to get reelected. And once that happens, I'll have more latitude or leeway or flexibility." I think it's flexibility is the word he uses. So how did we go from having a relationship with Russia, which seemed pretty cozy with those two? And by the way, I have a theory which is completely and utterly unsubstantiated. But my theory goes back to a post that I read in 2008. Let me see if I can dredge that up here. Hold on a second. Let me just do this. Now, I've read this post before, and again, it is one of these, is it real? Is it hearsay? Whether it's real or hearsay, I think it's interesting. And I'm going to read the post to you. Give me one second here. Just got to I had everything else teed up. Just got to get to this one part. Here we go. My computer is at the end of its hard drive. So I actually am I'm getting it here. Give me one sec. All right. So I read this back in 2008. This was by somebody named Tom Fife. And this comes off of Rense.com. So take it for what it's worth. Could be hearsay, could actually be true. With Barack Obama, it's you don't know. We don't know. Everything is locked up and sealed, hermetically sealed. There's no we know a few things, and the things that we do know have been skillfully and kind of artfully portrayed in his two books. It's like, that's it. That's the roadmap. This is what we know of Obama. It's the two books. And the first one, more than likely, ghostwritten by Bill Ayers. All right, so here we go. This is from rents.com. It's called The First Time I Heard of Barack. Again, I'm just reading this because it gives us perhaps another way of looking at it, whether it's real or not. Certainly it teases the cerebral cortex and the synaptical connections in our head. Now, we're in a time where we bandy about this notion of fake news. You know, what's real or what's not real. We get reports that are clearly fake. And mostly, I think the mainstream media is fake and has been fake for a very long time. We're getting the infestation of fake on the alternative side as well. So what the hell? What's it matter? Let's just all throw it out there and see what sticks to the wall. That's kind of where we are with reality anyway. I'll read this. During the period of roughly February 1992 to mid-1994, I was making frequent trips to Moscow, Russia, in the process of starting a software development joint venture company with some people from the Russian scientific community. Now, remember, the guy's name is Tom Fife. Could be his real name, maybe not. I don't know. One of the men in charge on the Russian side was named VM, and he had a wife named TM. V was a level-headed scientist, while his wife was rather deeply committed to the losing communist cause, a cause she obviously was not abandoning. One evening during a trip early in 1992, the American half of our venture were invited to V and T's Moscow flat. As we were about to return to the States, the party went well, and we had the normal dinner discussions. As the evening wore on, T developed a decidedly rough anti-American edge, one her husband tried to quietly rein in. The bottom line of the tirade she started against the United States went something like this. You Americans always like to think that you have the perfect government, and your people are always so perfect. Well then, why haven't you had a woman president by now? You had a chance to vote for a woman president, you didn't do it. The general response went something along the lines that you don't vote for someone just because of their sex. Besides, you don't vote for vice president, but the president and vice president has a ticket. I believe she was referring to Geraldine Ferraro. Well, I think you're going to be surprised when you get a black president very soon. The consensus we expressed was that we didn't think there was anything innately bearing that. The right person at the right time, sure. America would try to vote for the right person, be he or she or black or not. What if I told you that you will have a black president very soon and he will be a communist? The out of the blue remark was met by our stares. She continued, well, you will, and he will be a communist. It was then that the husband unsuccessfully tried to change the subject, but she was on a roll and would have nothing of it. One of us asked, it sounds like you know something we don't know. Yes, it is true. This is not some idle talk. He is already born and he is educated and being groomed to be president right now. You will be impressed to know that he has gone to the best schools of the presidents. He is what you call Ivy League. You don't believe me? But he is real, and I even know his name. His name is Barack. His mother is white, an American, and his father is black from Africa. That's right, a chocolate baby. And he's going to be your president. She became more and more smug as she presented her stream of detailed knowledge and predictions, so matter-of-factly as though all were a foregone conclusion. It's all been thought out. His father is not an American black, so he won't have that social slave stigma. He is intelligent, and he is half white, and has been raised from the cradle to be an atheist and a communist. He's gone to the finest schools, he is being guided every step of the way, and he will be irresistible to America. We sat there not knowing what to say. She was obviously very happy that the communists were doing this, that it would somehow be a thumbing of their collective noses at America. They would give us a black president, and he would be a communist to boot. She made it quite obvious that she thought this was going to breathe new life into world communism. From this and other conversations with her, she always asserted that communism was far from dead. She was full of little details about them that she was eager to relate. I thought maybe she was trying to show off that this truly was a real person and not just hot air. She rattled off a complete litany. He was from Hawaii. He went to school in California. He lived in Chicago. He was soon to be elected to the legislature. Have no doubt he is one of us, a Soviet. At one point, she related some sort of San Francisco connection, but I didn't understand what the point was. Don't recall much about that. I was just left with the notion that she considered the city to be some sort of center for their activity here. Since I dabbled in languages, I knew a smattering of Arabic. I made a comment. If I remember correctly, Barak comes from the Arabic word for blessing. This seems to be an odd name for an American. She replied quickly, yes, it is African, she insisted. He will be a blessing for world communism. We will regain our strength and become the number one power in the world. She continued with something to the effect that America was at the same time the great hope and the great obstacle for communism. America would have to be converted to communism, and Barak was going to pave the way. So what does this conversation from 1992 prove? Well, it's definitely anecdotal. It doesn't prove that Obama has had Soviet communist training, nor that he was groomed to be the first Black American president, but it does show one thing that I think is very important. It shows that Soviet Russian communists knew Barak from a very early date. It also shows that they truly believed among themselves that he was raised and groomed communist to pave the way for their future. This report on Barak came personally to me from one of them long before America knew he existed. Although I'd never heard of him at the time of this conversation, Obama was 30 plus years old and was obviously tested enough that he was their anticipated rising star, Tom Fife. Okay, so I'm just reading that to you because I think it's interesting. We know that Frank Marshall Davis, who was very close to Barack Obama, was a key figure in CPUSA, which is the Communist Party of the United States of America. And as a result, Barack Obama was schooled in communism, in Marxist manifesto, by Uncle Frank, as he was known to Barack, according to his book. It's pretty clear that there are also Communist Party ties through Obama with his grandparents, his grandfather and his grandmother, who were socialists. Now, so this connects Obama into a very unique kind of, how do I say this? Fulcrum, right? It puts him in this really interesting kind of alchemical pot, right? Where all these influences are mixed together and synergized. And out of that synergy, the black and white synergy, the American African synergy, the Western communist synergy, we have this manifestation of Barack Hussein Obama. Again, through these connections. His mother was deeply connected to the World Bank and Timothy Geithner's father. And as a result of that, one of the reasons why she was in Indonesia, where Barack Obama was to work with another socialist there named Lolo Soetoro, which is where Barry gets one of his names, Barry Soetoro, right? So there's this interesting background on Obama. And none of this was entirely vetted when he was running for president. Why? Because most of his records were sealed. And there's also been a long-standing relationship at a high level with communism in this country. And in fact, if you go back to the Bolshevik Revolution was essentially started on Wall Street. It was the bankers of Wall Street. And then post-Soviet Revolution or Bolshevik Revolution, there was a deep investment in Russia and the Soviet Union when it came to infrastructure, technology, building. The American oligarchs, corporations were involved. They were involved in keeping Russia alive. They wanted to have Russia as a kind of a commercial outpost, and they needed a bully on the block. They needed Russia as part of the Cold War so that they could have the rise of the military industrial complex and the military state, without Russia in a post-World War II environment, the world itself could have drifted towards some form of equilibrium and peace. And there is very little financial investment and interest accrued with peace. We know this because when there's peace, guess what happens? The military-industrial complex stops churning out weapons. And we're talking hundreds of billions of dollars every year. It is a huge industry. It is the industry. And it starts at the top with everything from munitions and guidance systems all the way down to rations and office and clerical support and communications and computer systems, clothing, you name it. It is a massive industry unto itself. And in order for this industry to exist, there needed to be a boogeyman. There needed to be this sort of bipolar creation of a two-world state with communism being an active threat. And to some degree, it is an active threat. And it was an active threat, and it still is an active threat. But this was all created. It was manufactured. Again, all you have to do is go back and listen to Anthony Sutton or read his books, and you'll see very clearly that the Third Reich and the Bolshevik Revolution were essentially started by the same group of industrialists, bankers, and oligarchs. It's true. Now, as a result of this, there are a lot of people in the United States who were very invested in communism. Not just from a corporate or globalist perspective, an internationalist perspective, which of course there was always a great deal of interest in Russia and communism, but also from the point of a social system and governance. CPUSA is a big deal. And the Russians were involved heavily in creating systems of demoralization. Now, I've played the Yuri Bezmenov piece before on this show. And Bezmenov is somebody, well, first of all, he was a KGB defector. And he came to the United States in the 1970s and began to do interviews about the strategy, the Soviet strategy. And it was about demoralization, demoralizing the American public so that their morale would be so low that they would be easily conquerable and vanquished. And if you look back on the 1960s and the 1970s and all the way up through the early 80s, where we get into Iran-Contra and all that stuff, right? This is a really prominent theme in the evolution or the de-evolution of the United States of America. And I've spoken about this before, that when I was a kid, I was really into America, right? I mean, it was like I was really into it. Like the Olympics, go America, best country in the world. And I was only like 7 or 8 years old. And I used to watch the Vietnam War at home every single day. Talk about demoralizing. Holy shit, right? They don't do that anymore, do they? No, they don't. Because we'd be shocked about what we saw. And what was important during that time was shocking the American public. It was showing the American public every single night that they were losing a war. In most cases, people would be eating their dinner while watching the news. By the way, never watch the news and eat dinner. Never watch the news and eat food. Those moments, that energy codes on you because you're in a different state, right? You're in a different brain state when you eat. The digestion process is beginning, so you begin to sort of detune a little bit. You become very suggestible when you eat. Don't watch the news when you eat. So that's what happened during the Vietnam War. That was clear, right? That was clear. And then after that, we have Nixon, and then we have Watergate. which is incredibly demoralizing. So this whole process of demoralization was in place. And what Bezmenov shared with us through his defection was clear. And that demoralization process did not abate once Reagan became elected. No, it changed a bit, but it still had some momentum. The momentum shifted into other areas. It wasn't necessarily on the geopolitical social front, because at that point it was all about Pax Americana with Reagan and Bush. And if you weren't thinking too much, you would, or weren't that aware, you would think that everything was just peachy keen, and it wasn't. The demoralization was happening in other areas of media, entertainment, but it's always been a script in the background. Always been a script. And CPUSA never went away, right? They've had cells all across the country. And I've shared the story before, my personal experience living in California, in Oakland, California. I used to go to a place called the Uhuru House, and it was a thrift store, and it was on Grand Avenue in Oakland, California. And it was run by communists. It was a communist front. It was a communist storefront. It was like a front and a front, right? It was very interesting. And I would go there and I'd look for things like shelves or audio equipment. And I began to develop a relationship with the communists. Oh, man. Wasn't that fun? Anyway, this one woman, okay, I kind of won her over. I'll tell you how I won her over. One day, there was this guy who was a little bit disabled in the store. And I'm not telling you this to prop myself up or anything. But one of my philosophies of life is, if you can create magic in the moment, do it. Okay? Do it. If you can be an agent of the miraculous, even if it's tiny, 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 do it. And be open and aware. Like, don't always try to insert yourself in everything, but there are moments in time where things can happen, and they could be really interesting things. So there was a guy in the store, and he was kind of disabled, right? He wasn't completely, like, fully on board. But he was there, and he was trying to buy something, and he didn't have enough money. And he was kind of struggling to get it together. Now, clearly, they got this shit for free. Like, nobody goes there and says, hey, will you buy this for $5 or $10 and then turn around and sell it for 20? No, they would get this stuff for free. And all these tax write-offs, they were a nonprofit. Communist Party in the United States is a nonprofit through the Uhuru House. Anyway, I saw the guy was kind of struggling to get his money together. I think it was like, I don't know, $15 short. I had some money on me. He said, look, I'll cover the rest. So I covered it, and I said, and he said, oh, great. I'll come back and I'll drop the money off at the store. I said, whatever, it's fine. And so the woman who was there, who was running the show, she was this Jewish gal, right? She had the big, the Barbra Streisand fro going on. And she's like, oh, that was really nice of you, right? Oh, that was really kind of you, right? It's just, it's what we do. We're human. We do this, right? Now, all of a sudden, the communist is thinking, wow, this person might be good for our party. So I went back, and she gave me this newsletter, maybe a couple of weeks later. She gave me this newsletter, and I was like, oh, okay, what is this? This is our, she would tell me all the time. She'd say, Robert, it blows my mind. People don't know what we're doing here. It just blows my mind. She's smiling. She's like doing a little jig. She's like, we plan on overthrowing this government, and we're right here, and it's out in the open, and we're making money. I mean, she was binging herself, right? And she's just like, I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Okay. So I got the newsletter. It's called The Burning Spear. I've talked about this before, and this is a ramp up. Okay, we're going somewhere with this. We're going, trust me. It's The Burning Spear. And I'm reading this thing, and it's all about the party's activities in Oakland. And I was shocked. I was absolutely shocked with what I was reading. And I've shared this before you before. If you're a longtime listener to the show, You've heard the story. If you're new to the show, I'm going to share it again. I feel like Pete Carroll now. The way that they communicated news was that there would be people who were not part of the party line, or they were coloring outside the lines, and these people were shamed. And they weren't just shamed with one column; they were shamed with a couple of different columns, and there would be pictures of them. And by the way, for the most part, what I could tell was the majority of that cell in Oakland, obviously, was African American. They were black, because the pictures in the newsletter were lining up to be about 90% African American. And so there was this ideology and strategy of humiliation. And if you step outside or color outside the party lines, you become publicly humiliated. And I'm like, what kind of society does this? What kind of culture does this? What kind of culture denigrates and persecutes people and makes them feel like shit? Well, I'll tell you the culture that does it. It's our culture. And we're doing it right now. Some of you might know that I'm a sports fan. That's quickly ending, by the way. I'm getting ready to kind of walk away from sports, and I've loved sports all my life. And I love sports because, number one, I have a little bit of the competitive streak in me. Number two, I played sports growing up, played a lot of baseball, a lot of basketball, football, did martial arts. It was like a big part of my love, especially basketball. I loved competing with basketball. It was great. Played thousands of pickup games all over the West Coast of the United States, and just had a great time doing it. Bonded with a lot of people. There's nothing better than playing basketball for about 2 hours and then cracking open a couple of beers. I'm sorry. I know it sounds really lunkheaded, but it's true. I was watching the All-Star game, and baseball has clearly changed. Now they have this red carpet moment before the All-Star game, and the players come out, and they're wearing the most fucking ridiculous fashions I've ever seen. I mean, it's like straight out of like the Hunger Games. Do they have a Hunger Games stylist like getting these guys together? It's like there's a lot of great young talent in baseball. I love the fact that baseball's doing its best to get some swag, some flair. Cool, great. You got to keep the brand kind of current. We know what young people like, which is flash, flair, swag, maybe a little bit of smack talk. But during that game, there was a player who was pitching for the National League. His name is Josh Hader. Not Hater, Hader, Hader. And he pitches for the Milwaukee Brewers. And somebody decided during the All-Star game to go into the history of Josh Hader's Twitter feed and found a bunch of tweets from when he was young and said some stuff that we would consider to be politically incorrect, racist, homophobic, hateful. And this is during the game. During the game, this stuff comes up. Now, who goes into Josh Hader's Twitter feed and tries to find this stuff? Is it somebody, just some casual fan going through all these Twitter feeds? Well, let's see what we can find. Let's see what we can find. Let's see what we can find. Is that what's happening? Is it somebody who has a grudge against Josh Hader? Are they a hater? Or could it be something perhaps even a little more insidious? Could it be somebody involved with Major League Baseball? Or perhaps somebody who is connected to one of the media outlets like Yahoo, who seem to have an agenda, a bias, and an axe to grind. Maybe they were operating on a hunch. Hey, you should check out Josh Hader's Twitter feed. Oh, salty. In fact, you probably shouldn't have deleted those tweets. So this comes up during the All-Star game. Here's what happens. During the game, Josh Hader's parents are in attendance. All the parents of the players were there. They were all sitting together. And Major League Baseball, MLB, during the broadcast on Fox, let us know that this is where the parents were sitting. They were all there. They were supporting their sons. They had their names on the back of the jerseys. And there we go, right? Beautiful story. There's my kid, Major League Baseball player. Well, apparently, Major League Baseball, MLB, sent somebody into the stands and got Josh Hader's parents to remove their son's jersey and put on a generic Milwaukee Brewers jersey with his number on it. Now, first of all, how would they know how to do that? Now, okay, I'm gonna go back here for a second. I'm not completely sure it had his number on it. Not completely. I'd have to find this out. I don't want to be. I need to be clear and concise with my delivery. But it was a generic Milwaukee Brewers jersey. His parents had to take off their son's jersey because of some tweets he made 4 or 5 years ago. If I'm his parent, if that's my kid, I said, you're going to have to fucking rip this jersey off of me or escort me out of here. And if you do, I'll make a scene so big that you're going to have to spin this for the next 2 weeks. And guess what else you'll have to do? You have to hire a lawyer. Because I'll sue your ass. Leave me the fuck alone. If this is true, right? This is true. What happens to people? What happens to people in a situation like happened to me? It happened to me one time at a ball game in Texas with the Rangers. And I was caught unaware of something really bizarre that had to do with my kid and this baseball team we were with. We were getting thrown out of the stadium because some kid flipped off an usher. And I had no idea what was going on. It's in those moments, right? It is in those moments where we've just got to be clear and in the frickin' moment. And it's hard for us, right? Because again, we get triggered. The triggers happen. We have to be in the moment. If I was more in the moment, in that moment, right? Not trying to figure out how I was going to be perceived by the other parents, how I was going to be perceived by my kid, I would have said, this guy said to me, this usher, he followed me because we were in another part of the stadium. The kids were goofing off. They had their shirts off or swinging their shirts around in the bleachers, trying to get on Sports Center. We got kicked out of this one section. They did. We were just there watching them. And one of the kids flipped off the usher, older guy. I said, get the hell out. He said, get out of here. Leave. And I thought he was just like, leave the section, right? Yeah, okay, I'll leave the section. We'll leave the bleachers. We'll go back to our seats. The guy told me to leave the stadium. He wasn't clear on that, okay? And I didn't even know why all this was happening. So he says to me, this is America in some ways. And I'm here to defend this country. I'm here to defend the United States for a portion of what I'm talking about. This portion, it's indefensible. This is where the little fascists get a little too much power. He says, we've got you. We've got the kid flipping me off on video. And if you don't come, if you don't leave, we're going to call the cops. This is the 9th inning of a baseball game. He's kicking out a group of kids, right? So if this is just to bring this back to Hader's parents. If I had been in that moment, really in that moment, I said, fine, show me the video. I want to see who it is. I want to see the kid. Take me. First of all, I want to see it. Take me there. Let's go. And by the time we'd have gone there and gotten back, the game would have been over. And I would have known who the kid was, and I could have told the parents. But what happens is we get taken out of the moment. And when we get taken out, and it happens all the time, because most of the time we're walking around in a fucking trance. So you need to check yourself, click in. Awareness. This is part of my gift to you as a Scorpio rising. Because when you're in the moment, you can make different choices. If you can stay out of the compression of duality, you can, there's a third, there's a fourth, there's a fifth option. The moment opens up in ways that we cannot perceive it. So maybe that's what happened with Hader's parents. Maybe they just were so shocked in that moment that they would do what they were told. That's another little slice of this. When you're shocked, guess what happens? You do what you're told. It's a lot easier. Okay. Okay. I'll do it. Let me take off my son's jersey. Oh, I feel so bad. I feel so bad. It's bullshit. It's total bullshit. This is the same tactic that they were using inside of the 5 or 6 pages of the burning spear. It's the same tactic. They were humiliating these parents. And now Josh Hader has to go to sensitivity training so he can still play Major League Baseball. One of these days, I pray, I hope and pray. One of these days, somebody says, you know what? I was young, I was blowing off steam, and so what? So what? Well, you take sensitivity training. No, I'm not taking sensitivity training. Admitted a mistake. I could grow as a person. I don't need your personal reformation, right? I don't need to be brain wiped and then have a new program inserted. Well, you may not be able to play Major League Baseball. Fine. I've got a life. I can go do something else. I'll go play in Mexico. I'll go play in Japan. I love the game. Screw you. Screw Major League Baseball. I just want somebody at some point to step up and say, this is it. Apologize. I'm not going through the sensitivity training. You want to keep me on your team? Now, here's the hypocrisy. The hypocrisy is that another Milwaukee Brewer, Ryan Braun, got caught doping with steroids, big cover up, accused the guy who took his sample of lying. Guy lost his job. Ryan Braun still playing baseball. Where's his sensitivity training about being a freaking human? Anyway, I just needed to bring the Josh Hader stuff up because one of the reasons why is that this tactic of demoralization is still in place. It's still in place. We are still being hacked. We're being hacked all the time. And the communistic mode of shaping and molding people's consciousness is to embarrass them and guilt them and put them into a box so that they can't think or speak outside of that box lest they lose their job or their connection to the party. So whether it's speaking out against political correctness or truth or whatever it is, right, there is a program in place right now. Get in the box. Get back in the box or you're going to lose your shit. Okay. People get kowtowed. But I saw that. I had that moment. And I thought to myself, I am not digging the direction of this world. Look, I'm a fossil. I'm 56 years old. I was raised in the 1960s. I got a little bit of the 1950s in me because I was born in 1960 and some of that consciousness seeped into my life. I got a lot of the 60s in me. I went off and I did the psychedelic trip when I was a kid. Well, not as a kid, but older. I went through punk rock. I got the 70s in me. I've got a whole bandwidth of experience. I did the new age in the 80s. It's all part of my makeup, right? It's all there. And synthesize it, alchemize it, put it all together, and I've got a whole different stew of influences. I was on Facebook last night, and I put up these pictures of Obama and Medvedev. Buddy. And that's okay. That's all right. But you have Trump having his connection summit with Putin. Holy shit. The whole house of cards is going to come down. Well, why? And I got into this last night. Joseph Martin, very nice man, very, very nice guy. He's really into the angel stuff. I spoke on his panel. back in, 2 years ago, San Francisco, one of these Living Expo deals. I'm grateful that he had me on his panel. It was an unusual panel for me to be on. But I was there and I enjoyed it. I had fun and I'm, grateful. But we got into it last night. And it was like, he was saying, Robert, that's not the issue. Meaning that Obama could go to Russia and be buddy-buddy with Medvedev and Trump can't. I said, what's the issue? What's the issue? He said, you're smart enough. You know what the issue is. I'm like, no. What's the issue? And I kept asking him what the issue was. What is the issue? What's the issue? And he couldn't answer it. He could not answer the question about the issue. I'm like, this is nuts. And eventually he said, I'm out of here. Tapped out. Tapped out. So what is the issue? Did Donald Trump receive a boost from the Russians who meddled in the election, the 2016 election? That is the issue. So let's break this down. Let's just try to be really clear about this whole thing. There was a dossier, right? There was a dossier that was put together by GPS Fusion. Who funded the dossier? It was the Democratic Party. The DNC funded the dossier. And they used Nellie Orr, and they used, what's his name, Steele, the British agent, and they paid a lot of money for this dossier. And the dossier basically says that Trump went to Russia and had a couple of hookers and peed on the bed that the Obamas slept in. That was the dossier. And because of that, the Russians had dirt on Donald Trump and therefore were able to control him like a puppet. Okay. Then you had, of course, the Michael Flynn visit to Russia. I'm just putting this out there. We're trying to create a timeline here, okay, as to this whole sort of piece around the meddling. Michael Flynn was given permission by one Barack Hussein Obama to go to Russia. It was that in-between phase, the liminal phase, between the end of the Obama regime and the beginning of the Trump regime. Yeah, go. You have my blessing. Why did he go to Russia? Well, it's because secret agent 00666 asked him to go. He wanted to know how Russia was going to vote on an upcoming UN resolution regarding, his favorite country, Israel. And so Flynn went there to go talk, hey, what are you guys going to do on this UN resolution thing? That's why he went. And he was given permission by Obama. His greatest sin was that he lied to Mike Pence. It could very well have been a setup. And what about the meeting that was taken? This woman who was a supposed lawyer, of course, they're going to sit down with this woman to see if they can get any dirt. Politics is grimy. It is a grimy occupation. It is not for the weak or faint of heart. Case in point, somebody wound up in like a garbage chute at Huma Abedin's apartment. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Now, cannot be proven, but there's some claims that may have came from Huma Abedin's garbage chute. Clearly, it was at her apartment building. Is it anecdotal? Yeah, but there's a whole history of the Clinton death list. We know this for a fact. Even Mr. Anthony Bourdain was openly talking about Hillary Clinton, HRC, and how bad she is, and how her goons were making life hard for him. It's on the public record. There's another incident where apparently this woman who was connected to Hillary and the Clinton Foundation in Haiti, her home blew up and she was in it. Okay, so again, it's all anecdotal, but it's this web of absolute and utter catastrophe, disaster, and death that surrounds the Clintons. That part is clear. It cannot be disproven. It's not just 6 degrees of separation. There's usually 1 or 2 at the most. Okay. So, was there meddling? Was there meddling on the Russians' part? I would say there's always meddling on the Russians' part. If Barack Obama was indeed raised to be a communist from the moment he took his first breath, then there's a really good chance that they meddled through the entire life and evolution of Barack Obama. But there are also other countries that meddle as well. Clearly, Israel was involved in meddling because they wanted to know. Israel has the most powerful lobby in the world through APAC. They are constantly, and I mean constantly, putting the heat on Congress people, senators, staff, and they have huge amounts of resources. There's always some form of meddling. Do you think China has meddled in US elections or candidates? Of course they have. I don't have hardcore evidence, but the relationship between the Clintons and the Chinese are legendary. Legendary. And the Clintons are internationalists. They're globalists. And I think Trump is kind of an internationalist as well, with a nationalist streak in him. So, okay, we know the dossier was created by the DNC, right? It was their money. It was supposed to be opposition research. They were going through their own opposition research by having this, lawyer. It was a whole setup. The one thing that the Trump campaign and people are, I think, really guilty of is being naive, and that they were set up very early on. And these people who are part of the DNC, Obama, the Alinsky fold, they are fantastic at skunk works, community organizing, using the media. And remember, if it is true that by and large they are deep state on the communistic side influenced, then they have a whole background in history and strategy that comes out of the Soviet Union to do this stuff. I mean, there's a playbook there. There are playbooks for all of these things. And I'm not here to exonerate Donald Trump. I'm here to try to be as fair and as down the middle as possible as I can be. Donald Trump was likely involved in money laundering with his hotel and casino business. Look up Felix Sater and the connection. It's funny. It's really, really funny. They'll go after the little fish, right? They'll go after a Paul Manafort. They'll go after a Michael Flynn. They'll go after the little fish. But they won't bring Felix Sater in now, will they? Because once Felix Sater walks through those doors and sits down with Robert Mueller, guess what happens? The whole thing explodes into not just the United States and Russia. Oh, no, no, no. Now we're getting into oligarchs. Now we're getting into Chabad Lubavitch. Now we're getting into a whole network of influence that a lot of people want to keep really, really quiet, really secret, occulted, and behind the scenes. He'll never bring Felix Sater in. Felix Sater is the guy that knows where all the bodies are buried and where all the books are cooked. And I believe that Trump was laundering money through the casino business. Probably still happens with Sheldon Adelson, one of his casino buddies. I'm not sure that would be meddling. Would there be influence? The influence is Wilbur Ross. Wilbur Ross bailed Donald Trump out. Wilbur Ross at that time was working for the Rothschilds. Who's the Secretary of Commerce? Wilbur Ross. So if there's any meddling going on, it's the debt that Trump would have to repay the Rothschilds because Wilbur Ross, through the Rothschilds, bailed Trump out. Do you want to go there? No, they don't want to go there. They don't want to pull that string. See, they don't want to pull that string. They don't want to pull the Felix Sater string. Let's pull the Russia string. Let's do that. To quote Van Jones, there's a big nothing burger there. A big nothing burger. Now, Mueller has recently indicted these Russians. Well, what about Mueller? What about Mueller's efficacy? Well, Mueller presided over the investigation into 9/11. Need I say more? One of the absolute greatest cover-ups, deceits um, of all time. The mother of them all. You want to talk treason? All you got to do is go back to George W. Bush. I was getting into this with Laird Scranton. He was all about just, they all want Trump's head. It's like, come on now. Come on. If you want to be real, let's be realistic about this. If you want to get to the core of the problem, Trump would just be a symbolic kind of sacrifice, right? He's the death of the white male. He's the wicker man. You get your Pyrrhic victory and you run around the streets smearing the faux blood of Donald Trump and his family and this vision of the rich, white, arrogant male. An orgy. It would be an orgy of some kind of justification. And then it would be over. You'd get a serotonin rush unlike anything you've ever experienced before. And it'd be over. A Pyrrhic victory. And guess what? You'd have Mike Pence as your president. Good luck with that. Good luck with that. So I said to Mr. Laird Scranton, I said, look, I'll give you Trump's head. You give me the head of Obama. You give me the head of Bush. You give me the head of Bush. And you give me the head of Clinton. All four of them engaged in treasonous acts, particularly Obama, Bush II, and Clinton. All of them dirty to the core. Obama was running a proxy war off a server with Hillary Clinton, created ISIS. ISIS comes to fruition under Barack Obama's time as president of the United States. Benghazi, Barack Obama. Fast and Furious, guns going to Mexico in a drug deal, gun deal gone bad, Barack Obama. Barack Obama has dirt and skeletons in his closet, right? Look up Tony Rezko. Look up Tony Rezko and the relation between Rezko, Obama, and Michelle Obama. Tony Rezko was one of Obama's benefactors in Chicago. Tony Rezko is doing time now. He might have gotten out. But when he was running for president, he was in jail for a number of issues. And he was clearly one of the Obama's big benefactors, money-wise. Sure, there's plenty of dirt on Obama, plenty. And Clinton, please. We got Oklahoma City, we've got Waco, we've got the Elian Gonzalez fiasco, we've got selling trade secrets to China. I mean, the Clintons are dirty, 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 all the way up to their third eye and their crown chakra is filled with feces and excrement. That's how dirty they are. George Bush oversaw one of the greatest travesties and tragedies in the history of this country and the world, which is 9/11. Orchestrated and organized by the deep state in conjunction with Saudi Arabia and Israel. There you go. Robert Mueller presided over that. This is from a website called accuracy.org. And this is 9/11 whistleblower rally, Mueller's history of cover-up. This is Colleen Rowley, and she can be reached at Colleen Rowley, former FBI agent and division counsel, whose May 2002 memo to then FBI Director Robert Mueller exposed some of the FBI's pre-9/11 failures, was named one of Time Magazine's Persons of the Year in 2002. She just appeared on the Real News Report. This is back in 2017. Special counsel investigating Trump campaign has deep ties to the deep state. About Mueller being appointed to investigate the Trump campaign ties to Russia. While Mueller has been widely described as being of impeccable character by much of official Washington, Rowley said today the truth is that Robert Mueller and James Comey, as Deputy Attorney General, presided over a cover-up. In her interview, Rowley noted the FBI and all the other officials claimed that there were no clues, they had no warning about 9/11, and that was not the case. There have been all kinds of memos and intelligence coming in. I actually had a chance to meet Director Mueller personally the night before I testified to the Senate Judiciary Committee. He was trying to get us on his side, on the FBI side, so that we wouldn't say anything terribly embarrassing. When you had the lead up to the Iraq War, Mueller and, of course, the CIA and all other directors saluted smartly and went along with what Bush wanted, which was to gin up the intelligence to make a pretext for the Iraq War. For instance, in the case of the FBI, they actually had a receipt and other documentary proof that one of the hijackers, again, I'm going to go on the record that Mohammed Atta was a setup and he was a patsy. So I believe that even though Rowley is outing Robert Mueller here, that there's another layer to this, that she could actually be engaged in some level of either covering up or obfuscating that layer. But I'm going to read on anyway. Okay. Mohammed Atta had not been in Prague, as Dick Cheney was alleging, and yet those directors more or less kept quiet. That included CIA, FBI, Mueller, and included also the Deputy Attorney General at that time, James Comey. Rowley also noted that Mueller presided over the post 9/11 roundup of innocent immigrants, the anthrax investigation fiasco, as well as going along with a form of martial law made possible via secret OLC, Office of Legal Counsel memos, written by John Yoo, etc., predicated upon Yoo's theories of absolute imperial presidency or war presidency, powers that the Bush administration was making Attorney General John Ashcroft sign off on. While not the worst of the bunch, neither Comey nor Mueller deserve their Jimmy Stewart G-man reputations for absolute integrity, but have merely been along the lines of George Slam Dunk Tenet, capable of flexible, politicized sycophants to power that enmeshed them in numerous wrongful abuses of power, along with presiding over plain official incompetence. It's sad that political partisanship is so blinding that so few people remember the actual sordid history. Okay, without going too deep, Mohammed Atta and his band of merry hijackers were hanging out in Florida, theoretically learning how to fly. That was a pretext. That was a show. They were there to take some cursory lessons and to figure out how to fly these planes. There's no way Mohammed Atta or any of those guys could have done what they did theoretically with those aircraft. And I say theoretically. Okay. Mueller presided over the 9/11 whitewash. That's all you need to know. This guy is not some kind of paragon of virtue. He's not. He's an insider. There are records of him actually delivering uranium to Russia. There are records of him doing that. This whole thing is so entangled, and it's so easy to point out that Trump is the boogeyman. What else? What else are we talking about here? Well, we're talking about WikiLeaks and what happened with WikiLeaks. All this material came out on the WikiLeaks server from the DNC server. Who got into the DNC server and leaked it? Question mark. Was it Guccifer 2.0, theoretically, who was hired by the Russians? Or was it Seth Rich? Was it Seth Rich and Guccifer 2.0? I believe it's Seth Rich. I also don't believe that Seth Rich is dead, but that's another discussion altogether. And I'm not the only one, by the way. And other people say, oh, you're wrong. No, I may not be wrong. I think Seth Rich is an operative, and he was extracted. There's no autopsy of Seth Rich, and there's no obituary of Seth Rich. Period. End of story. Then you have Seth Rich's weird parents. And anytime anybody wants to go in and kind of pull the lid off of the Seth Rich thing or claim that it was a conspiracy, guess what? Seth Rich's parents have hired lawyers and they go after those people. Jeez, really? If I was his parents, I may think, hey, I want to know really what happened here. And if you've got some information, I'll pay for it. I'll take out a loan. I'll take out a second on my house. I want to find out, who the sons of bitches were who killed my kid. If indeed that happened. Right? Again, that's not happening. Talk about this in the light that there's a conspiracy and we'll see your ass. Whoa. Why? Oh, leave it alone. We want to mourn. I get it. I don't think Guccifer 2.0 was the guy who did the leaks, even though he says he did the leaks. It's easy. It's easy to say that. I got a WikiLeaks bombshell here, right? Here's the WikiLeaks bombshell this is from, hey, look, I'm sorry, teaparty.org. I know it's not terrible. What's really interesting? It's like, well, who's your news source? Who do you watch? I have people claim, I've had people come after me, send me a bunch of emails and tell me that I'm a misogynist. They tell me that whatever, right? I am not. I'm justice for all, boys and girls, right? But look, I do have this kind of weird, strange affliction where I'm trying to be truthful to the best of my ability. I know it's bizarre, isn't it? This one woman, she sent me a bunch of emails. You must listen to Fox News. You seem like a Fox News watcher. No, I'm not a Fox News watcher. I don't watch Fox News. Sasan accused me. He called Alex Jones my boss. Like, I know Sasan. I've known Sasan for years. Used to hang out with him. Used to party with him in the Bay Area. Like, I'm the first. There may be a few things with Alex that I might share, but man, I am not like Alex Jones. I'm not. I don't have to be beholden to people who pay my bills in that way that Alex does. Let's just put it that way. All right, let me get into this. WikiLeaks. This is from April 9th, 2017, a year ago. WikiLeaks confirms Seth Rich as source of DNC leak and provides proof. WikiLeaks released direct messages from U.S. alleged Russian spy, Guccifer 2.0, to actress model Robin Young, whoever this is. In the stream of text, the discussion leads to the DNC leaker. His name is Seth. In November, Julian Assange said Russia did not attack or did not hack into the DNC servers. Is that interesting? Theoretically, Assange said they didn't do it. If Assange is even still around, I don't even know if he's still around. But they also want Assange's scalp. And that's the Trump administration, right? Here we go, WikiLeaks. This is the WikiLeaks Twitter feed. Direct messages from U.S. alleged Russian spy, Guccifer _2 to actress model at ROBBIN Young _Young, according to the latter, g2.space/sr/dms.html. Guccifer admits he is not the DNC hacker. And there's the Twitter exchange. This is Robin Young. True love can never be bought. Who is this person? His name is Seth. He was my whistleblower. I suppose you know who I am talking about. Yes, and it was horrifying to hear about the death. I have no facts, but it's my opinion Hillary had him murdered. Oh my God. You must be very careful. What is the issue with your assistant? Do you feel you can't trust him or her? It seems I can't trust him, but he can't be a public figure. Guccifer 2.0, his name is Seth. He was my whistleblower. I suppose you know who I'm talking about. This may explain why the DNC did not allow the FBI to look at its servers. July 8, 2016, 27-year-old Democratic staffer Seth Conrad Rich was murdered in Washington, D.C. The killer or killers took nothing from their victim, leaving behind his wallet, watch, and phone. Are you kidding me? And there's a DC is wired. They got cameras everywhere. Shortly after the killing, Redditors and social media users were pursuing a lead saying that Rich was en route to the FBI the morning of his murder, apparently intending to speak to special agents about an ongoing court case, possibly involving the Clinton family. Seth Rich's father, Joel, told reporters if it was a robbery, it failed because he still has his watch, he still has his money, he still has his credit cards, still had his phone. It was a wasted effort, except we lost a life. Okay, look. I've weighed in on Seth Rich. It's my opinion that he was extracted. I believe he was inserted. He was inserted to do exactly what he did with the DNC. Guccifer 2.0 was not the leaker. It was Seth freaking Rich. Was Seth Rich a Russian agent? I highly doubt it. Now, there are people who think that Seth Rich was just this really idealistic Democrat who was a big Bernie guy and couldn't believe that Hillary and the DNC was stealing the campaign from Bernie. Maybe that's the case. Maybe that's true. I think it's a little bit deeper. My opinion is that Seth Rich was probably Mossad, and I've already stated my case for that in previous broadcasts. Okay? So what I'm trying to do is disassemble this notion that there was some form of what? Some form of meddling. I've given you a history, a historical perspective that Russia has been meddling in this country for decades. I've given you a perspective that Russia is not the only country that has meddled. And clearly, during the run-up of the election, when Mike Flynn was given permission to go to Russia and speak with the Russians, that request to go there was given to him by Jared Kushner, who wanted to know how the Russians were going to vote on a UN resolution having to deal with Israel. I got into the fact that the DNC funded GPS Fusion report might have been pretty baseless. And let's just say, for instance, Trump did party with a couple of hookers and peed on the bed. I'm telling you right now, there's way bigger stuff in Trump's closet than that. Okay? Way bigger. If the Russians wanted to hammer him, I'm telling you right now, they could have hammered him on the Felix Sater and the money laundering stuff with the oligarchs through the casinos. But if they go down that path, now they're messing with Sheldon Adelson and they're messing with a whole other network, and they don't want to do that. So we have this GPS Fusion report, real or not. And even if it's real, whatever. I'm telling you right now, you're dealing with an eyes wide shut crew. If you wanted to really go after Trump, pursue the Jeffrey Epstein angle. Get into Jeffrey Epstein and Pedo Island and all those other people. You know what happens when that happens? You pull that string and everything begins to just unravel. Won't go there now. So they're going after sort of the flimsiest of causes. Flimsy. Absolutely flimsy. Now, what I want to do is also present to you a few things around Peter Strzok. Peter Strzok worked simultaneously for the CIA and the FBI. This is from another incredibly reputable website called brassballs.blog. Peter Strzok worked 24 years for the CIA. His job title was chief of their counter-espionage group. The FBI never had such a unit. Strzok led the FBI's investigation into Hillary Clinton. She used personal email for classified government business while she used Secretary of State. The FBI's investigation into Russian interference in the election of Donald J. Trump as president was also led by Strzok. Strzok is running both investigations. The joint CIA-FBI position was created by Congress in 1996. Strzok was a senior FBI official by being the CIA's chief of counterespionage. Here we go. Here's an unclassified FOIA document. It says here, date 20 January 2016 to Gregory B. Starr, Assistant Secretary, Bureau of Diplomatic Security, from Peter Strzok, Section Chief, Counter-Espionage Section. Counter-espionage is a CIA group. It is not an FBI group. Subject, supplemental classification review and determination request. Let's see. This is all about classification stuff that Peter Strzok signs. Section Chief, Counter-Espionage Section. That's a memo right there. Federal Bureau of Investigation. Let me read this again, right? I'll read it again. A joint CIA-FBI position was created by Congress in 1996. Strzok was a senior FBI official by being the CIA's chief of counterespionage. Strzok's signature and job title is on letter he sent to Gregory Starr on January 20th, 2016. It was sent on FBI stationery. The official job description of Strzok's joint position included full-time coordination with the FBI, including weekly meetings with senior FBI officials in the FBI's National Security Division. The source is a joint press release dated November 18th, 1996, listed here. Lisa Page of the FBI was assigned to work with Strzok. Strzok was still working for the CIA on June 9th, 2017, according to a public information release of information here. We're all good. This is undercover Huber, John Huber. We're all good with disgraced FBI Deputy Assistant Director of Counterintelligence, Peter Strzok, getting a CIA coin with John Brennan's signature in the middle of 2017, right? So Strzok, they have these coins that are picked that the CIA hands out, and apparently Strzok got one. James Kallstrom, former FBI Assistant Director, discusses Peter Strzok in the above video. Please fast forward to 50 seconds. I'm going to post this link inside the YouTube page here. You guys can get the download, all the download on Strzok's connection to both the FBI and the CIA. And as a person who was involved in the FBI, of course, he answered to John Brennan. John Brennan has been a vociferous critic of Donald Trump, the administration, extremely loyal to Barack Obama. And John Brennan had covertly converted to Islam. So here's what I think is going on. Okay, I think what's happening is you have Donald John Trump, who I don't always agree with. I'm not a big fan of this connection that he has with the Zionists. Okay, not a fan of it. Whether it's ideological, whether he has to pay the bills, whether he's got a contract to fulfill, whether he understands that they're the biggest power players in the room, right? They're the 500-pound gorilla in the room. Whatever that is, I'm not a fan. And I'm sure you can't do much business or can't have much political clout unless you have that muscle around you. And now we're in the language of gangs, right? This is gang talk, gang language, larceny, extortion, muscle, hits, public assassination, right? Assassination in the public sphere, not being actually physically assassinated, which leads to my next point, almost. One of the things that I am encouraged about, and all Americans theoretically should be encouraged about, is the fact that these cages are being rattled, that we're seeing these intelligence agencies being exposed for really the first time in a very long time. Like the last time we had any really kind of insight into what goes on behind the scenes was probably Iran-Contra. That was a long time ago. Well, here we go. Fast forward. We're beginning to get a peek behind the curtain. And the peek behind the curtain is not flattering. I sat there and I watched Peter Strzok, who to me was the epitome of absolute and utter arrogance. And the reason why is because these people are internationalists and they live by their own rules. They are outside the law, and they may claim that they have an investment in some form of vision or version of America. Great. That's their version. And it's an internationalist version. They are dyed-in-the-wool internationalists. And when Trump started to throw down against NATO and against these internationalist organizations, they are freaking out and losing their shit because they are dedicated to the internationalist cause. And what is the internationalist cause? The internationalist cause is socialism/communism with a capitalistic topper. That's what it is. You want the internationalist cause? Look at China. That is the internationalist, and they are devoted to it. That is the world that these people want to create and support. They are not into quote unquote nationalism, right? They're not. They're not. Now, there could be some ugly sides to nationalism. There could be some ugly sides to patriotism. It bleeds into fascism. I get it, right? I get it. I totally get it. But every country has a soul, and the souls of every country are different. They're different, right? This country has a soul, and it's got a lot of black marks on the soul. And yeah, there's a lot of redeeming that we need to do as a country. But because we have to do some redemption, it doesn't make us bad. Like I'm actually, a, I'm, I'm a spiritual being having a physical experience, just like you, right? I am a galactic nomad. I'm a galactic nomad. That's what I am. I would call myself an internationalist. I would call myself a celestialist, right? And I think a lot of you are too. But I'm born into this body, into this country, and into this life, and into this lifetime, and this lifeline. And I am doing my best to see the big picture. And I'm doing my best to understand that a lot of people have been fucked over in this country for a very long time. And I'm not just saying it's the people from flyover. A lot of people have been fucked over, right? And if we really want to make the country great again, let's just acknowledge that. But let's not acknowledge it in the sense that we have to strip everything away from who or what this experience is. One of the things that we theoretically can do, and I got into this last night, there's a difference between government and governance. And people have been lulled into a trance. And we've been given this completely insane kind of model to think that the people that represent us actually truly represent us. It's not true. It's not true. And maybe it's true to some extent. Like you have this Cohen guy up there cheerleading for Peter Strzok. Maybe if you're in his district, he is representing you. Maybe that's the case. By and large, it doesn't really happen. So one of the things that I think was really important about this country and that we could actually have a model for other countries and other parts of the world is that from a governance level, we're involved. We are involved. If you don't like what's going on in the border with the kids, you know what you do? Here's what you do. You go drive down to the border. Go drive down to the border and set up a fucking tent city or something, right? Get involved. If you don't like it, get off your ass, commit to it, get off your computer and commit to it and go down there and go help out. If you're really that pot committed, that's governance. That is governance. And that's what we need more. We need more governance. We need self-governance. That's really important, right? You are an entity unto yourself. You are a country unto yourself. You are a planet unto yourself. You are a cosmos unto yourself. And you better start operating from that model. You operate from that model. And guess what? The keys to the kingdom begin to open. It's the most empowering place to be. So we're here. We're in this country. I am. You may not be. You may be watching me from another country. If that's the case, you have your relationship to that place and the soul of that place. And what makes that place either special or makes it faulty or flawed or failed or whatever it is. It's part of your experience, your journey. So what I'm trying to do here is I'm trying to set the record straight, right? That we're dealing with the rattling of the cages of the security state, of the media, and this is great. I love it. For all of Trump's flaws, I will be forever grateful for him to do this. Because guess what? Things are being shaken out. We're seeing the Peter Strzok's of the world. We're seeing the James Comeys. We're seeing people that operate outside of the same kinds of laws, rules, dictates, and mandates that we do. Because in their world, they are theoretically working for some kind of higher cause, higher order, and they have command of maybe 2 or 3 different languages. They think they're incredibly smart. They were raised for this position, like Peter Strzok or Barack Obama. And I haven't even gotten into the Obama Strzok pieces and the connections there. And they're there. Look them up. They have ciphers. They have codes. They have a language unto themselves, right? And even in his memo, Strzok mocked Trump's supporters. the deplorables. Look, I live in Flyover. There's a lot of nice people here. Are there yahoos? Absolutely. Absolutely. It's, this is not some kind of redneck paradise. Trust me, it's not. There are good people here. There are quote unquote God-fearing people here. Most of them probably wouldn't get what I do. And I'm not that concerned with that. It's the bottom line. But there's also yahoos here. It's the way of the world, right? But Strzok, like many others who come from a certain POV and a mindset, have an absolute antipathy towards middle America and the people that make up the bulk of the country who have suffered mightily over the sort of march and the onslaught of internationalism. And by the way, capitalism is internationalism as well. When corporations move their companies overseas and begin to manufacture in other parts of the world, it impacts who we are, where we are here. Is there a greater day ahead of us? Yes, possibly. Can we have energy that would be freer or cheaper? Yes, possibly. Can we get involved with 3D manufacturing and become miniature industries unto ourselves? Yes, possibly. Wouldn't it be incredible if we had these things at our disposal to decentralize everything? The manufacturing process, the energy process, the food process, so that we ourselves have our fingers in all of them to some degree. And if we don't, then we could have relationships with other people that do. To me, this is the promise of the time ahead in the world that we're living in, that there can be a really profound movement towards decentralization and governance. And if Trump is part of the wrecking ball that takes the whole shit show down, then bring it on, right? But one of the things that I want to touch on before I sign off here today is I do believe he's in some jeopardy. And this has to do with astrology. And I've been looking at his chart, and I talked about this on Sunday night. Between now and September, October, this is one of the most perilous times in the life of Donald Trump. And I gave out the dates on Sunday night show. And it's between now and September that I believe if there is something that could happen to Trump, it will happen during this time. And that means either an attempt on his life or actually taking his life. And the reason why is because we have the Mars retrograde to what? Pluto in his chart. He's got Pluto and Leo, Mars transiting his seventh house, open enemies. Open enemies. Opposing Pluto, right? The planet of death. Mars-Pluto opposition. There it is. There it is. Not only that, but he's going to go through the Mars-Mars opposition as well. This is the gauntlet. Between now and September is the gauntlet for one Donald John Trump. So keep your eyes on that. And if you're watching this and you're just, doing Mr. Smithers on the demise of Trump and the death of Trump, you better think long and hard about that. If you're into a wrecking ball kind of mode in that regard, then you'll cheer it on, because I'll tell you what'll happen. We'll have a market collapse like you've never seen before. And not only that, but there'll be people in the streets. So careful what you wish for. And I think what I really want to sign off on here today, before I look into the chats, the various chats, is I want the best and highest possible outcome for everybody. And I may be unpopular at times. I've got Jupiter in Sagittarius in my first house, trines Uranus in Leo in my ninth house. Sometimes I'm out there and people don't like what I have to say. I usually say it with either conviction or some kind of caveat, but it's usually something I've thought out pretty well, at least to the best of my ability. We're living in a time of disassembling where things are being revealed to us. It's a time of revelation. It's a time of revelation. It's the way it is. So sit back, make sure that you're clear with yourself, make sure you're clear with your spirit, your soul, These are really important exercises to go through every single day, every day, right? That's part of the process because at some point we are going to reach a time of atonement and reckoning. And this is not from some kind of biblical perspective. It's just a law. It's a cosmic law. We've had so much backlog, so much denial, so many lies, so many illusions that I don't believe that this matrix and this version of reality can sustain it any longer. I just don't. And especially when there is a generative force, which is a reactive force towards that wants to open it up and to absolutely have an X-ray vision. And that's happening. It's happening as to what's going on. And you may not like it. If you're on the left, you may not like it. If you're on the right, you may not like it either. Maybe things that you may find to be distasteful or you're going to have a hard time wrapping your head around. Truth is truth. It's the way it is. It has its own morality. All right, let me get into the chat room here and see what we got going. First of all, let me go into the Spreaker chat. Alexandra, fascinating. This sounds a lot like the famous writer Richard Wright, author of Black Sun's experience with the Communist Party. American Hunger, best show ever. This is the most comprehensive novel I've heard. Good. I'm glad you feel that way. Thanks for listening in, Alexandra. Let's go into what do we have here? We've got 50 people in there. Do or die time. It gets worse. So a lot of action going on in the chat room. That's fantastic. Really, really good. Really good. Did anyone see yeah. I mentioned, so Tanya says, did anyone see the Portland, Oregon art of Trump's head being cut off? Yeah, that's a theme, right? That started with Kathy Griffin. And it's continued. Wish I would have known you were in Philly. Would have loved to hang out with you. Listen, there's a really popular saying with QAnon, right? Which is, stay the course or have hope. I'm not a big QAnon person. I'm more of a UAnon person, right? I'd say take everything that QAnon says and apply it to your life and what you're doing and how you can make a difference. And don't always wait for the white hats to show up. You are the white hat, okay? Remember that. You are the white hat. So I just want to sign off on that. Thanks for showing up today. Hang in there. Stay strong. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to stay open what's possible. This is Robert Phoenix. I'm signing off. Ciao.